something too. I'm not super.
Good morning.
Hey, Gary. Good morning.
Hi.
Okay, just FYI, I connected to YouTube, so we're live, if anything, for the 9 o'clock.
We have probably about 30 seconds more.
Yeah.
We are public.
Okay, is it 9 o'clock yet?
Yeah.
Yes, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Can you take roll call of the board members, please?
Okay, so far I have Don, Gary, Ona. Oh, I'm sorry. Don, Gary, Mel, George, Roderick, and Kimberly.
Okay, cool. So we have a quorum. So item 2 on the agenda, approval of the minutes. So the regular session minutes of December 10. Can I get a motion?
Motion, Don.
Thanks, Mel.
Second.
Thanks, Gary. Is there any discussion? Any additions or deletions to the regular meeting minutes for December 10? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes.
Excuse me, Chair Mendy.
Yes.
If I may, Francis Kino, Deputy Director, sometimes also known as the Executive Assistant. If I may, I wish to report that we have received 2 requests from the public to provide oral testimony on items on the board's agenda today. And both requests want to testify on the Executive Director's report, specifically the rent relief program. The testifiers have been informed that they have 3 minutes to provide their oral testimony, and that neither the board nor staff is required to respond to the oral testimony, and that neither board nor staff is required to answer any questions that the testifiers may pose. So at the appropriate time, I will be calling the testifiers and putting them on speaker, and they will be afforded the opportunity to provide their oral testimony to the board on the rent relief program. Thank you.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, Francis.
And Don, one more thing. Sorry.
Yeah.
Just wanted to note that Mike McCartney is on as well.
Very good. Hey, Mike. Okay, thanks, Francis. Thanks, Essa. So continuing on to on the agenda items 2B, the executive session minutes of December 10. Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion.
Thanks, Mel. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thanks, Gary. Any discussion, any additions or deletions for the executive session minutes for December 10? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item 3A. to accept the audited financial statements of the Hawaii Housing Finance and Development Corporation for the fiscal year ending in June 30, 2020. Can I get a motion, please?
I make a motion, Don.
Thanks, Mel.
Very good, very good.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members
Oh, wait,
of
I
the
need a
board.
second. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thanks, Gary. Okay.
Good morning. I'm Holly Osumi. Good morning to the Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I'm Holly Osumi, the Chief Financial Officer, and I'll be presenting the audited financial statements report this morning. The for action is to accept the audited financial statements of the Hawaii Housing Finance and Development Corporation for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2020. I'll be presenting the facts and discussion by PowerPoint. So let me share my screen before I begin. The board materials provided to the board members included the corporation's financial and compliance audit report and the single-family mortgage purchase revenue bond fund audit report. The single-family report is incorporated into the corporation's financial report, therefore a separate presentation is not deemed necessary. I've noted a disclaimer that the presentation is not a complete representation of all the facts. Please refer to the report for complete information. The auditor, Acuity LLP, completed the audit of the fiscal year ended June 30, 2020, and issued these three reports. These reports were issued by Acuity on December 11, 2020. The first report of independent auditors, Acuity rendered an unmodified opinion on the audited financial statements. Therefore, the financial statements present fairly the corporation's financial position as of June 30, 2020. Changes in financial position and cash flows for the year then ended. The second report of independent auditors on internal control over financial reporting and on compliance and other matters based on an audit of the financial statements performed in accordance with government auditing standards. Acuity did not identify any deficiencies in internal controls that are considered material weaknesses. Acuity performed tests of compliance, and the results of their tests disclosed no instances of non-compliance or other matters that are required to be reported for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2020. The third report of independent auditors on compliance for each major federal program and on internal control over compliance required by the Uniform Guidance. Acuity identified the HOME program as a major federal program. Acuity opined that the corporation complied with all material respects with the types of compliance requirements described in the OMB compliance supplement. In the prior year's financial and compliance audit report, as of June 30, 2019, Acuity identified an instance of non-compliance which was required to be reported in accordance with the Uniform Guidance. I'm pleased to report that the recommendation has been fully implemented. As such, the status is resolved. The next section discusses the corporation's financial statements. The statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in net position, or statement of activities, presents how the corporation's net position changed during the fiscal year. For presentation purposes, revenues were aggregated of operating and non-operating revenues and transfers in. Likewise, expenses were aggregated of operating and non-operating expenses and transfers out. This graph depicts the financial data from the Statement of Revenues, Expenses, and changes the net position for fiscal year 16 to 20. For the period fiscal year 16 to 19, expenses, as represented in the blue bars, were relatively flat, not exceeding 50 million. Unlike revenues, the green bar, which fluctuated based on state allotted appropriations. As such, revenues was the catalyst of the changes in net position or net income. State allotted appropriations were during fiscal year 16, 50 million, fiscal year 17, 70 million, fiscal year 18, 210 million. This was a result of late in the 2018 legislative session, where we were appropriated 210 million of general funds, 200 million for rental housing revolving fund, and 10 million for DERF, which was swiftly enacted and fused by June 30, 2018. In fiscal year 19, 28 million was allotted, as well as a gain recognized from the portfolio sale of 5 of the 6 properties of 85 million. During fiscal year 20, state allotted appropriations amounted to 117 million. However, you'll see that expenditure spiked because of the mandated interchange of 250 million from the rental housing revolving fund to the state's emergency and budget reserve fund. The statement of net position, also referred to as the balance sheet, is a snapshot of the financial position of the corporation as of a specific date, such as June 30, 20, the last day of the fiscal year. The statement lists all of the corporation's resources for assets and deferred outflows of resources, and all that the corporation owes or its liabilities, and deferred inflows of resources. The difference between the two equals the corporation's net position. Over time, the changes in net position may serve as a useful indicator of the corporation's fiscal health. This graph depicts the trends of total assets and liabilities and net position from the statement of net position for fiscal year 16 to 20. As indicated by the purple line in the middle of the graph, the net position trended upwards from 720 million to 1.1 billion for fiscal year 16 to 20, indicating a healthy financial position. Net position increased year over year as a result of net income after lapses in net transfers as indicated. The rise in fiscal year 18 is attributed to the 2018 allotted appropriation that I mentioned earlier. Assets trended upwards on the average. Liabilities trend line appears to be fairly flat until fiscal year 19 and then resumed. In fiscal year 19, both assets and liabilities decreased in parallel as a result of the adoption of GASB 91, where all assets and liabilities related to the conduit bond activity in the multifamily fund were de-recognized or removed from the financial statements. In fiscal year 20, assets increased due to the infusion of GEO bond funds, while liabilities increased due to that 250 million accrual for the interchange of the general fund type monies. But despite the 84 million decrease in net position in fiscal year 20, the corporation remains fiscally healthy. There are 2 types of funds: governmental funds and proprietary funds. Governmental funds comprise the funds that are primarily financed with public funds, whether it's state or federal. These are HHFDC's funds and programs that comprise the governmental funds during fiscal year 20. Here's a brief description of the funds and programs. This comparative graph depicts the total assets, liabilities, and fund balances at June 30, 20 and 19. For both years, the fund balance, as shown in the purple column, is just about equal to total assets because liabilities are typically immaterial in the governmental fund. In fiscal year 20, governmental funds total fund balance decreased by 27.8 million to 15 million from 42.9 million in fiscal year 19. The fund that drives the changes in the governmental funds is the General Obligation or GEO Bond Fund. The GEO Bond Fund accounts for the transfer of proceeds from the state's issuance of general obligation bonds to the corporation for the infusions for DERF and rental housing revolving fund. The 27 million decrease in the fund balance of the GEO Bond Fund was primarily a result of the balance due from the state as of June 30, 2019, for the DERF infusion that had been appropriated for fiscal year 17, but had been received during fiscal year 20. As mentioned earlier, in the GEO Bond Fund, it is the driver under the governmental funds. GEO Bond Fund infusions are significant, which drives the fluctuations in the revenues. During fiscal year 20, revenues from the state allotted appropriations from the GEO Bond Fund amounted to 117 million. This was offset by the transfer of 144 million to DERF and rental housing revolving fund, resulting in a net change of 26.7 million. The second type of funds is a proprietary funds, which are enterprise funds that account for activities which the intent of management is to recover, primarily through user charges, the cost of providing services to customers. The top four funds in terms of net position will be discussed in greater detail in the following graphs. During fiscal year 20, there were at least two significant events that impacted the activities of the proprietary funds. Under DERF, during October 2019, we purchased the lease fee interest of Front Street Apartments for 15 million. In December 2019, the corporation purchased the lease fee interest of Kamakei Vista for 17.5 million. And also the COVID-19 pandemic. This graph depicts proprietary funds' total revenues and expenses. During fiscal year 20, total expenses outpaced total revenues. The proprietary fund revenues, as shown in the green pie chart on the left, 84% of revenues is comprised of the 144 million transferred in from the GEO Bond Fund for the rental housing revolving fund, as well as the 32 million of conveyance taxes for the fund. The proprietary fund expenses, as shown in the blue pie chart, 93% of the expenses is comprised of 249.6 million of other expenses, where the corporation recognized 250 million upon recording the due to the state for the transfer of general fund and conveyance taxes type monies as mandated under Act 4, Session Law 20. This graph and the next graph depicts the significant funds in comparison to non-significant funds, which I'll be discussing. Rental housing revolving fund. This fund's total net position decreased by 134 million to 648 million from 782 million, as shown in the purple columns. This fund provides developers of qualified rental housing projects with gap loans and their grants for development, pre-development, construction, acquisition, preservation, and rehab of rental housing units. The decrease in net position was primarily the result of conveyance taxes of 32 million, transfers in of 75 million from the GEO Bond Fund, offset by the 250 million in other expenses. Rental housing revolving fund provides gap loans, therefore the balance of loans and notes receivable and accrued interest was 504 million, or 56% of assets, followed by cash and investments in the state treasury of 395 million, or 44% of assets. Liabilities are minimum, usually, as loans committed are generally not recorded upon executing loan contracts. Instead, loans are expensed as invoices are presented for payment. As of June 30, 2020, outstanding loan commitments amounted to 2.2 million. Award commitments are, as approved by the board, amounted to 263 million, and we had one pending application of 37 million. Revenues includes transfers in. For this presentation, 92% of revenues comprised of transfers in of 75 million and 32 million of conveyance taxes. The increase in revenues is primarily due to the transfers in from the Geo Bond Fund of 75 million during fiscal year 20 as compared to 0 in fiscal year 19. Conveyance taxes was 32 million in fiscal year 20 in comparison to 30 million in fiscal year 19, a decrease of 6 million. The decrease is attributed to the COVID-19 pandemic. For March and April 20, combined conveyance taxes received amounted to 1.7 million as compared to the monthly average that we usually receive of 3 million. Expenses increased by 250 million. 100% of this is comprised of the expense recognized when we recorded the due to the state as mandated by Act 4. The act was enacted on July 6, 2020, however, required the corporation to transfer rental housing revolving funds to the state's Emergency and Budget Reserve Fund retroactively to June 20. In October 20, subsequent to the fiscal year end, these funds were transferred to that Emergency and Budget Reserve Fund and were quickly replaced by Geo Bond funds. This interchange of funds was a result of the state's budget shortfall due to the pandemic to retract the general fund type monies that we had on hand. The 200 million of general funds that we received in fiscal year 18 and 50 million of conveyance taxes received in fiscal year 19 and 20 were transferred. Next is DERF. DERF's net position increased by 76 million to 403 million from 327 million. This fund accounts for state funds used for acquiring, developing, selling, leasing, and renting residential, commercial, and industrial properties, providing mortgage and interim financing, rental income, sales proceeds, and interest earnings from the finance and investing of such funds. The increase in net position was primarily a result of transfers in of 67 million, which was transferred from the Geo Bond Fund. There were no significant year-over-year changes in total revenues and expenses. For fiscal year 20, 78% of revenues comprised of the transfers in of the 67 million from the Geo Bond Fund, in comparison to fiscal year 19, where 72 million was transferred in from the wind-up of the Hawaii Rental Housing System Revenue Bond Fund, which included the transfer of Kamakei Vista to DERF. The rental activity of Kamakei Vista resulted in slight increases in both revenue and expenses during fiscal year 20. Next is the single-family mortgage purchase revenue bond fund. There are no significant changes noted in these balances. Assets comprise of cash and investments held by the trustee in accordance with the indentures. During fiscal year 20, the single-family fund had redeemed 4.3 million in outstanding bonds, and assets decreased correspondingly due to the cash and investments liquidated to redeem the bonds. For single family, no significant year-over-year changes in total revenues and expenses. Next, rental assistance revolving fund. The rental assistance revolving funds, there were no significant changes in net position. This fund provides rental subsidies to qualifying owners of rental projects. The decrease in net position was primarily a result of payments of rental assistance subsidies to qualified rental housing projects offset by interest income. No significant activity in revenues and expenses during fiscal year 20. However, during fiscal year 19, the fund received the transfers in of 19.8 million from the sale of the 5 properties under the Hawaii Rental Housing System Revenue Bond Fund to fund the rental assistance payment obligations to the new owners. Noteworthy events that occurred after June 30, 20. In November 20, the corporation conveyed the leasehold interest of Kamakei Vista for 34.6 million, thus completing the portfolio sale. And also, Act 9, Session 20, enacted on July 30, 20, appropriated 100 million to the corporation to administer the Housing Relief and Resiliency Program. Additional highlights are available in the Management Discussion and Analysis section of the audited financial statements on pages 4 to 12 of the report, as included in the materials provided. This concludes my presentation. If the board members would like a printed copy of the slides or the audited financial statements, please contact Tessa. Based on the facts and discussion, HHFDC staff recommends that the corporation's board of directors accept the audited financial statements of the corporation for the fiscal year ended June 30, 20. We have representatives from the audit firm with us this morning, Don Nakamura, principal, and Nicholas Miyamoto, in charge and manager. It was a pleasure working with the Acuity team throughout the audit. Any questions for our staff or Acuity?
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to make a comment, if I may.
Sure, go ahead.
I just want to thank Holly and her team. They spent quite a number of long evenings here in preparing for all of this and the audit. So job well done. Thank you very much to you and your team.
Yes, thank you. That was a very thorough report. Does any of the board members have any questions or comments for Holly or the accounting team? No? All right, so if not, all in favor to accept the report?
This is Mike Mccartney. I accept the report.
Oh, thanks, Mike. Anyone against? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you, Holly.
Thank you.
All right, so moving on to item 3B. This is to approve a loan renewal for Holly Kualoa project located in Hilo, Hawaii, KMK number 324-057027. Can I get a motion, please?
Move to approve.
Thanks, Gary. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thanks, Rona.
Hi, morning. Morning, board. This request is for a loan renewal for Holly Kualoa. The project is an 81-unit affordable housing project targeting 60% and 50% AMGI families in Hilo, Hawaii. On May 1st, 1984, Hawaii Housing Authority sold its leasehold interest in Holly Kualoa to Lani Kaula Associates for $3,044,832. HHA then issued a $911,653 purchase money note in support of the transaction. Subsequently, on December 4th, 2001, Lani Kaula Associates sold the project to GP Ho'aloha Limited Partnership, the current owner, for $3,830,768 in an acquisition rehabilitation transaction that was structured under the Hula May multifamily bond and 4% tax credit programs. At the top, so I guess the new agency at the time, Housing Community Development Corporation of Hawaii, refinanced the HHA note, which increased to $2,249,985 due to accrued interest with a new note. The affordability restrictions on the project are actually enforced through the tax credit and Hula May multifamily bond declarations and are set to expire on December 31st, 2030. However, the bond declaration maintains a clause that extends the restrictions for affordability for the duration of the project, project-based Section 8 assistance. So as long as the Section 8 assistance remains on the project, the bond declaration remains in place. On December 4th, 2019, the HCD-CH note matured with the outstanding amounts described on page 2 of the for action. After negotiating with the project, staff recommends a renewal of the HCD-CH loan with the terms outlined on page 3, section 3E of the for action. This would be an interest rate of 0.25%. The commencement of monthly principal and interest payments, an amortization rate of 20 years, a maturity of basically 8 years from the December 4th, 2019 maturity. And we will maintain a junior mortgage on the project site. Support for these loan terms are as follows. We anticipate.
Why do they have beards? Why do they have long hair? Why do they have this? Why do they have that? You can't keep saying why. If you want to be with them, you go work with them.
Hello, can you please mute your mic, please?
Okay, notwithstanding my lack of a beard, support for the loan terms are as follows. There is an anticipated 1.35 times debt service coverage ratio. We anticipate to be satisfactory and provide sufficient break-even cushion. Break-even would be prompted by increase in vacancy from 11.7% from an underwriting standard of 5%, or a decline in average rents to 1,152 a month from 1,241 a month. The reduction in interest rate to 0.25% from 3% will emphasize principal reduction on the outstanding loan, and the transition to scheduled payments on a 20-year amortization provides for monthly principal reduction and a payback period that would be 6 years before the ground lease expiration on the project site. The 8-year renewal does allow for reevaluation of loan repayment performance after full repayment of the senior obligation with Central Pacific Bank. And the project will be bringing all unpaid interest current which would allow the regular monthly payments to commence loan amortization. Based on the foregoing, staff recommends approval of the loan renewal. We're available for questions, and we have Mr. Paul Fortino representing the project.
Thanks, Patrick.
Thank
Anybody
you.
have any questions?
I have a question, Chair. The leasehold expires in the year 2046, and the fee interest is held by the Salvation Army. Does that lease control the affordability, the long-term affordability of this project? Because I know it was mentioned just previously that the affordability is tied to the availability of Section 8 project-based assistance.
I'm not aware of any affordability restrictions from Salvation Army. It's a regular from what I could see, it's a regular third-party lease, but the AMGI requirements that we have in place, which is the 60 and the 50, that would be controlled only by the tax credit declaration as well as the bond declaration. So the good comfort is the project does have the project-based Section 8, which is very valuable, right, for the project. You know, the tenants only pay 30%. So the project tries to maintain, you know, there's a lot of incentive to maintain that project-based Section 8 in place. And as long as that Section 8 program is in place, the bond declaration remains in place. So even though it's scheduled to mature in December 30th, if they decide, hey, I'm going to renew the project-based Section 8, the bond declaration will carry forward.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else? I just had a quick question. So the amount that we're financing includes all the back accrued interest, right?
Well, that's not included in the principal balance. The accrued interest is about, I think, as of November 30th, it was about 700,000, little over 700,000. If I include the additional 6,000 in accrued interest that would have accrued in December, that would bring the total to about 708. In order for them to renew the loan, we want to require that they bring all that interest current. So the accrued interest, by the time we renew it, would go down to 0.
Okay.
And then once we get that down, once we get the accrued interest down to 0, once we start the monthly payments, then we can, that very next month, we start making principal pay downs, right, which are monthly payments.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. Any other questions? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, moving on to item 3C. This is to approve an extension to Resolution 129, which provides an official intent with respect to the issuance of Kualoa multifamily tax-exempt revenue bonds for the Halava View 2 project located in Aiea, Oahu, TMK 199003026, portion out. Can I get a motion, please?
I make a motion, Don.
Thanks, Mel. Second?
Mike.
Second.
Okay.
Mike.
Morning, Chair, members of the board. The subject for action requests a 12-month extension to issue the bonds for the Halava View 2 project. This is the second extension for the project. The prior extension in July 2020 was for a 6-month period to coincide with the rental housing revolving fund expiration. On July 11, 2019, the HHFDC Board of Directors approved an intended tax-exempt issuance up to about $40.2 million for the Kualoa multifamily bond program, and up to $2.6 million in annual federal 4% low-income housing tax credits for 10 years, and up to $2.6 million annual state low-income housing tax credits for 5 years, and a rental housing revolving fund loan up to $21.3 million. The project will be a newly constructed 146-unit rental facility for family households at or below 30, 40, 50, 60% AMGI on Oahu. Improvements consist of an 18-story residential tower on a 6-story parking podium. The project is the second of 3 phases. Phase 1 is an existing 121-unit affordable family project. Phase 3 is concurrently planned is a 146-unit family project. Requests for an extension are evaluated on 3 basic milestones: site control, zoning approvals, and securing financing commitments. For the site control, the project has site control through an assignment of an assumption agreement. The owners of the existing Halava View Apartments project are the proposed owners of the Halava 2 and 3 projects. Zoning approvals. The project continues to make progress. On September 18, 2019, the city and county determined that the project was exempt from the state environmental assessment requirements. On September 9, 2020, the Honolulu City Council approved the 201H zoning exemptions. The awardee continues to work on obtaining final approval from DCAP and the building permit. For financing commitments, the awardee continues to work with Citibank on the sale of the tax-exempt bonds and Hunt Capital Partners on the syndication of federal and state low-income housing tax credits. The recommendation can be found on page 5 of the for action. Staff supports the request for an extension based on the progress made. While the project is working diligently to close the bonds and the revolving fund loan as soon as possible, it is expected that they will request another extension for a projected closing of June 2022. Staff is available for questions as well as Mr. Joe Michael of the project.
All right, thanks. Does anyone have any questions?
Dara, I have a question for, I think it's for the developer. Has this project gone through extensive design changes?
Hi, this is Joe Michael, the developer. No extensive design changes at this point, other than combining the project into one partnership and one residential tower. So the phase 2 and the phase 3 will be combined into one.
Okay, the reason I'm asking that question is I'm just looking at the timeline, the updated project schedule you've given in your correspondence to the corporation. And it looks like you're looking, and these may be outside timelines, but about 10 months to complete design from the 201H approval and about another 10 months thereafter of the building permit submittal to receive building permit approval. And that's putting us out about 1 year and 8 months from the 201H approval. So I'm just wondering if that schedule is a kind of a cushioned schedule, or if you think that's really how long it's going to take to accomplish those tasks.
Yeah, I think it's conservative schedule. With the new mayor, the new director of DPP, there's a transition there, so we accounted for that.
Okay.
But yeah, we're pushing hard. We think we can, meet or exceed that schedule.
Okay.
All right, thanks. Anybody else? No, seeing none. I don't have any questions. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you. Moving on. This is to similar item 3D. This is also to approve an extension to the rental housing revolving fund letter of intent for the Halava View project, Halava View 2 project located in Aiea, Hawaii, Oahu, TMK 199003026 portion of. Can I get a motion, please?
Motion, Don.
Thanks, Mel.
Second.
Thanks, Gary.
Okay. The subject for action requests a 12-month extension for the rental housing revolving fund letter of intent for the Halava View 2 project. This is the second extension for the project. The prior extension in April 2020 was for a 9-month period, which was the maximum period allowed for the executive director to approve by authority granted by the board. This is the same project in the previous for action that I just presented, so I'll skip all the details as they are the same. The recommendation can be found on page 5 of the for action. Staff supports the request for an extension based on the progress made. Staff is available for questions as well as Mr. Joe Michael of the project.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? No. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Any opposed? Nope, hearing none. Motion carries. Moving on to item 3E, which is to approve an extension to Resolution 130, which provides for official intent with respect to the issuance of Fulame multifamily tax-exempt revenue bonds for Halava View 3 project located in Aiea, Oahu, TMK 099030026 portion of.
Motion.
Thanks, Mel.
Second, this is Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
The subject for action requests a 12-month extension to issue the bonds for the Halaba View 3 project. This is the second extension for the project, and the prior extension in July 2020 was for a 6-month period to coincide with the rental housing revolving fund expiration. On July 11, 2019, the HHFDC Board of Directors approved an intended tax-exempt issuance up to $40 million from the Hula May Multifamily Bond Program, up to $2.59 million in annual federal 4% tax credits for 10 years, and up to $2.5 million annual state LIHTC for 5 years, and a rental housing revolving fund loan up to $21 million. The project will be a newly constructed 146 unit rental facilities for family households adequately of 30, 40, 50, and 60% AMGI. Improvements consist of a 16-story residential tower on a 6-story parking podium. This project is the third phase of 3 phases. Phase 1 is an existing 121 unit affordable project. Phase 2 is a concurrently planned family affordable project and the subject of the previous 2 for actions that were just presented. Project is in very similar position for phase 2 and 3 as they'll be built together. So again, they have site control through an existing assignment and assumption agreement, and the owners of the existing Halaba View Apartments project are the proposed owners of Halaba 2 and 3. Zoning approvals, they continue to make progress. They're on the same schedule as phase 2. On September 18th, the city and county determined that the project was exempt from the state environmental assessment requirements. And on September 9th, 2020, the Honolulu City Council approved the 208 zoning exemption. The awardee continues to work on obtaining final approval from DCAP and the building permit. The awardee continues to work with Citibank on the sale of the tax-exempt bonds and Hunt Capital Partners on the syndication of the federal and state low-income housing tax credit. The recommendation can be found on page 5 of the for action. Staff supports the request for an extension based on the progress made. While the project is working diligently to close the bonds and the revolving fund loan as soon as possible, it is expected that they will request another extension for a projected closing of June 2022. Staff is available for questions as well as Mr. Joe Michael of the project.
All right, thank you. Any questions for this one? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to item 3F. To approve an extension to the rental housing revolving fund letter of intent for the Halaba View 3 project located in Aiea, Oahu, KMK 199003026 portion of.
Motion, Don.
Thanks, Mel.
I second the motion, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
The subject for action requests a 12-month extension for the rental housing revolving fund letter for the Halaba View 3 project. So same thing as the project that you saw before. So I'm gonna spare you all the details. If you have any questions, let us know. The recommendation can be found on page 5 of the for action. Staff supports the request for an extension based on the progress made. Staff is available for questions as well as Mr. Joe Michael of the project.
Thanks. Any questions? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to item number 3G. This is to approve an extension to resolution number 095, which provides for an official intent with respect to the issuance of Hula May multifamily tax exempt revenue bonds for the Kaya Ulu or Waikoloa project located in Waikoloa, Hawaii, TMK 368003028.
Motion.
Second the motion, Mike.
Thanks.
Hi, morning, members of the board. The subject for action requests an extension to resolution 095 for the project. The project is a proposed 60-unit affordable rental facility targeted for families in Waikoloa, Hawaii, specifically targeting 60%, 40%, and 30% AMGI households. And improvements shall consist of 8 two-story residential buildings and 1 community building. On January 12, 2017, the HHFDC Board of Directors approved an intended tax-exempt issuance of up to $12,360,000 from the Hulame Multifamily Bond Program, up to $964,554 in annual federal 4% tax credits for 10 years, and up to $964,554 in annual state 4% tax credits for 5 years, and an RHRF loan of up to $9,900,000. Subsequently on May 14th, 2020, the HHFDC Board of Directors approved resolution number 141, which increased the intended tax-exempt issuance to up to $19,180,800 and an increase in the annual federal 4% tax credits to $1,395,945 for 10 years, and the annual state 4% tax credits to $1,395,945 for 5 years. After 4 extensions, Resolution 095 is set to expire on January 31st, 2021. The project did submit a extension request, and HHFDC staff evaluated the extension request based on the 3 criteria of site control, zoning, and financing commitments. The awardee has site control as the project is currently owned by a related entity and shall transfer ownership at or before bond closing. The project has received DCAB approval in an environmental assessment sign-off, along with a final review letter on its site-specific environmental hazard management plan regarding unexploded ordinances with no further comments. They are still waiting for building permits, but hope to receive shortly. For their financing commitments, bond closing calls are underway. First Hawaiian Bank and American Savings Bank are the bond investors, with Hunt Capital Partners as the tax credit syndicator. They are also working with Hawaii County on the project-based Section 8 rental subsidy. Currently, Hawaii County is waiting for HUD regional office approval of their layering analysis. The inducement resolution is required under Section 1.150-2 of the Treasury regulations before project construction. However, it does not authorize the sale of tax-exempt bonds for the project. IRC Section 147 requires an elective representative to approve the private activity bond obligations after a public hearing. As such, HHFDC staff shall present a subsequent resolution to the board to authorize issuance of the bonds for the project if deemed feasible. Based on the foregoing and the project made and the progress made towards financial closing, staff recommends approving an extension of resolution 095. Additionally, staff is also recommending a 12-month extension, which is 6 months longer than the awardee's request. This is purely as an abundance of caution against any timing issues regarding the building permit and the rental subsidy approval from HUD. Currently, on the last phone call that we had, which was yesterday, they do anticipate building permit approval and the HUD layering analysis approval kind of shortly, within a couple of weeks or something like that. But the other thing that they are looking at recently is the IRS has now approved a basically a change to the 4% tax credit program. Under this change, based on COVID, they are fixing the tax credit percentage at 4%. This could potentially allow the project to request for additional credits. They have made statements indicating that they are currently exploring the possibility of requesting for additional 4% credits, but the proceeds of which would be used to adjust the project's financial structure to allow for greater financial flexibility. So although they did already get an approval for additional credits a few months ago, any subsequent requests based on the fixed tax credit percentage at 4% would primarily be due to essentially pay down the project's existing debt level. So they would be trading out tax credit equity instead of debt, whether that be senior debt, pay down of the RHRF loan. So essentially that would just reduce the debt burden of the project. So that evaluation could, push back the timing of their closing, because currently right now they're looking at closing the bonds perhaps in February, March, or April, around there, depending when they can get their approvals for building permits and HUD. Sorry for the long-winded explanation, but request for approval is recommended. Thank you. Oh, I'm available for questions, and Mr. James Rock is available representing the project.
Great, thanks. Any questions? No. I just had one, Patrick, regarding the Section 8 vouchers, the project-based Section 8 vouchers. I mean, how likely is that to go through for this project?
Oh no, that's really good. The voucher approval is really good. What they, as part of the process, the county and HUD have to go through this layering analysis, which they so the county already did their initial layering analysis and approved it. So that's step one. Now they just got to go through the regional office.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Thank you. All right, moving on to item 3H. This is to approve an extension to the Rental Housing Revolving Fund letter of intent for the Kualoa o Waikoloa project located in Waikoloa, Hawaii, TMK 368003028.
Motion, Don.
Thanks, Mel.
I second motion, Mike.
Wait, thanks, Mike.
Sorry, so this is the related rental housing revolving fund loan extension for Ulu o Waikoloa. All the project facts remain the same, as well as the recommendation for a 12-month extension of the letter of intent. Staff does recommend approval, as well as we still have Mr. James Rock representing the project available for questions.
All right, thanks. Any questions for this one? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Thank you. Motion carried. Moving on to item 3I. This is to approve a grant of easement to Hawaii Electric Company, HECO, for the Waiahole Valley Agricultural Park and Residential Lot Subdivision, lot number 81, file plan number 2052, lot number 66, located in Waiahole Valley, Kaolaupoko, Oahu, TMK.
This is Mike. Yeah, I'd like to make the motion to approve that.
I second, Don.
Hi, good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair and board members. I'm Carrie Ann Ibarra with the Development Support Section. Historically, Lot 81 has never had electrical utility service. On August 13, 2018, Lot 81 lease was assigned to Alan and Brooke Jacobson, lessee. The lessee had purchased the lease from the former HHFDC lessee with the understanding that the lot did not have electrical service. They proceeded with renovations of the existing structures and had also requested and paid HECO to bring electrical utility service to the lot. HECO had installed 7 poles within their existing easement over Waihole Valley South Branch Road to extend the service down the road to Lot 81. On behalf of the lessee, HECO is requesting a grant of easement in order to complete new installation of electric utility service to the lessee's existing dwelling located on HHFDC Lot 81. If you turn to Exhibit B, there shows the maps and photos of the location that we're talking about. The installation consists of underground wiring to the lessee's dwelling from an existing HECO utility pole located on Waihole Valley Road South Branch. And the new easement as shown on Exhibit C is the HECO underground wireline easement map. The grant of easement will also allow HECO to construct, operate, and maintain equipment related to providing utility services. The cost for the installation of the underground wiring has been paid for by the lessee. Recommendation is that HHFDC Board of Directors approve the following: recording of a new grant of easement, and authorize the Executive Director to undertake all tasks necessary to effectuate the purposes of this for action. We have Mr. Jacobson and staff available for any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. Any questions? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Thank you. Okay, before we get into the oral testimony, does anybody need a break? No? We're good? Okay. So I guess item 4 is the executive director's report, but before that, I guess we'll let the testifiers submit their oral testimony before we get into the report.
Yes, Chair Mendy, if I may, I will be calling the testifiers and putting them on speakerphone. So.
Okay.
Your call has been forwarded to an automated voice messaging system. 808-690-7396 is not available. At the tone, please record your message. When you finish recording, you may hang up or press 1 for more options.
This is the Hawaii Housing Finance and Development Corporation calling for Eduardo Hernandez, who requested to provide oral testimony to our Board of Directors meeting. Let me... Mr. Hernandez?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Hernandez, you're calling the Hawaii Housing Finance and Development Corporation. You wanted to provide oral testimony to our board. You will have 3 minutes to provide your oral testimony. The board is not required to respond to your testimony or answer any questions you may have. Please speak clearly into your microphone and turn down the volume on your YouTube broadcast so that it will eliminate any feedback or echoing distortion. So Mr. Hernandez, you may now begin your oral testimony.
Good morning, and thank you to the members of the board for allowing my testimony today. I would like to begin with how difficult this process is to provide oral testimony, seeing as the governor in May of 2020 required organizations like yours to allow for oral testimony, and you have not provided it until today is the very first time you have allowed it. When I came to provide oral testimony in October, I was threatened with arrest, and I left your building, and there were 2 police cars outside, which was a really threatening move for someone who's trying to provide oral testimony and be a contributing member of the public in regards to a very vital, essential public policy program. We have, the public has really been misled and kept in the dark about what's happening about this program. We cannot see how much of the $100 million was allocated for rent relief and mortgage assistance. The last I checked, it was somewhere less than 60% of the funds. The executive director had indicated that if the funds were not expended, that Hawaii would lose that resource. And in fact, in terms of homelessness prevention, Hawaii did lose that resource. So that's a real failure to the people who could not get through, who could not understand why they were being denied. And multiple times the executive director would go on television and she would blame the applicants for filing false applications and misleading applications. And then she even blamed the landlords. Yet there were no tools, resources, training provided to the applicants or the landlords in order to help them create a successful application. And so I really question if the intent of this program was to distribute $100 million or if it was really to reallocate the funds. For 2021, we've been advised that there is a new program of rent relief, and I'm not sure who's going to be responsible for that. Is that going to be this agency? No answer. So are you going to set up a community advisory board where you get feedback from members of the community? Because we really don't know. If you look at the executive director's report, all it says is met with Catholic Charities, met with Catholic Charities, met with Catholic
Excuse me,
Charities,
Mr. Hernandez.
Charities.
Mr. Hernandez,
Yeah.
your 3 minutes are up. So your 3 minutes are up. Your time is finished. So I believe.
Well, I had to take some of my time because of your instructions to close my computer. So I would like to reclaim my time.
Well, I would have to defer to the chair, Chair Mendy.
Yeah, Mr. Hernandez, thank you for your testimony. Could you please wrap it up? We'll give you a few more seconds.
Yes, so I am recommending that a community advisory board be established to provide transparency for future rent relief. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your testimony.
Calling the second testifier, Steve Ferraris.
Harvey. The mailbox is full and cannot accept any messages at this time. Goodbye.
Okay.
Chair Mendy, just to put on the record, I did try to contact this testifier, Steve Ferraris, at the number he provided 2 days ago, and I got the same response. There was that short message, and the voice message said that the mailbox was full, that I could not leave any message for him at the time. So I just want on the record that what you heard is what I also heard 2 days ago when I tried to call him. So I believe we've satisfied our obligation to afford Mr. Ferraris the opportunity to provide his oral testimony to the board.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have some comments, if I may.
Alrighty, go ahead.
So first, I'd like to begin by thanking Mr. Hernandez for his testimony. I'm glad to read from your written testimony that you benefited from the program. I also did want to share some other comments. HHFDC was recognized for their good work by advocacy groups headed by James Koshiba and Gavin Thornton of Hawaii Appleseed. In his briefing of the House COVID Housing Subcommittee, Gavin Thornton recognized HHFDC and its nonprofit partners, Catholic Charities and Aloha United Way, for their unprecedented work on the rent relief program. Koshiba referred to an analysis by Yuhiro and said that the state's program got more assistance out to households on a per capita basis than anywhere else in the nation. Hawaii was also recognized as a model for other states by Roger Valdez of the Center for Economics, which was picked up by Forbes.com. You know, because of the pandemic, a considerable amount of the agency's time and energy had to pivot away from its core mission to administer the Rent Relief and Housing Assistance Program. I just want to give a shout out to Janice Takahashi and to the staff at HHFDC, everyone from programming and procurement to IT, fiscal management, public information, and our deputy AGs who worked many long evenings and weekends to stand up a brand new program from scratch in a very short amount of time to help those in need. Thank you so much for a job well done. The recap for the board, for which a dashboard, a public dashboard, was on our website shortly after the program started. So the program helped about 13,700 households. The nonprofits are still working through the few remaining landlord verifications and eventual disbursements. The projected total disbursement is around 60 million, along with the cost for the nonprofits to administer the program totals around 71 million, with the balance of roughly 29 million transferred into the Unemployment Trust Fund in accordance with Act 9. I would like to thank the board for their tremendous support during the past several months. This program has ended in December, and now HHFDC needs to refocus its time and energy on its core mission of financing and developing affordable housing for our community. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, members of the board. You have my written report. I'm happy to take any comments or questions at this time.
Chair, I got a question.
Sure. Go ahead, Mel.
Denise, you know, they started a new program, the RAMP program, I believe, the Rental Assistance Mediation Program. Is that being sponsored by HHFDC, or is that an?
That program is funded by DCCA.
Oh, DCCA, and it's going to be
by Catholic Charities.
Oh, Catholic Charities. And then on another note, I know several people that benefited from the prior program. They waited for a little over a month or so, but they were happy once the rent got paid. Thank you so much, Janice and the team. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Director Pale.
Chair, I have a question, and this relates to one of the comments from Mr. Hernandez. This was regarding the 2021 rent relief money that is forthcoming. Is there any plan for distribution of those funds through HHFDC or through other government agencies?
Thank you, Director Mackler. So the current plan right now is that the counties will administer the programs. Hawaii County and the city and county of Honolulu qualify for direct allocation, for which they have applied.
Okay. And the other counties that are not receiving direct allocations?
So Budget and Finance has placed an application and will work out distribution. The program again is to be administered by the counties.
Chair, if I may.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you, Director. I echo the appreciation, and I'm glad that you acknowledge the staff that stepped outside of their normal core functions that they continue to do and step forward, in a crisis when everybody has to step up outside of, what they're used to doing. And correct me if I'm wrong, but when the legislature first allotted the $100 million, there was talk about the short period of time that you guys were allowed to distribute the $100 million. There was talk about reducing that in order to make sure that it was deemed successful and that staff could support that. To the tune of even half of it, I think at one time was considered. And the fact that you guys were able to get out, 20%, 25% more, 20% more, and then the fees on top of that is just absolutely incredible and a testament to you and your staff and the commitment that you guys have to the people of Hawaii. So again, on behalf of myself as a director, I want to say thank you to you and your staff.
Thank you very much, Director Sparlin. We appreciate that. Thank you.
Chair, I'd also like to echo the sentiments. I think it was an incredible job by the department. And, I also want to push that thanks down to the nonprofit organizations, Catholic Charities and Aloha United Way. Their leadership, practically every member of their team, within the organizations worked just like, the HHFDC staff. And even below that, the partner nonprofit agencies who formed the network that gave direct assistance to individuals who are applying to help them apply for these programs. I've talked to other nonprofit leaders, and they were working through the night, making calls and doing the application. So I think the whole community really came together to get this program out. It was just a huge amount of money and everyone. So from Denise all the way down to line staff at the different small nonprofits really worked hard to do this. And I know how hard it is because I've run programs like this. So I really want to thank you and the staff for all the work you did.
Thank you, Director Fukumoto. Thank you very much.
Any other comments? Yep, go ahead.
This is Mike McCartney. I just want to echo all the comments that everyone made. And, I also want to just address the kind of comments that Mr. Hernandez made, is that I think he made some good recommendations. And, I just hope he and other people who are testifying understand the intent of this was to always help people. And, in any new program, it was a challenge to do it with the federal restrictions, the state limits, and what we tried to do to balance everything for the state of Hawaii. And so many hands made this happen, but it was thanks to Denise's and the team's leadership that they were able to pivot, and it's going to help us in the long run. And I think that there's new programs coming out that I think will help with rent relief, and maybe we'll hear some from what's coming out of DC in the next few days. But I just want to tell people that everyone's trying really hard to do the right thing and serve everyone. So we just I want to thank everyone for that, and thank you, Denise, for stepping up.
Thank you very much, Director McCartney. We really appreciate your tremendous support, not only with the rent program, but with everything else at HHFDC. Your support has really been instrumental in us accomplishing the work that we do. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Anything else?
I got a question, Don.
Yes.
When's the next one?
The next,
When's the next funds going to be given to HHFDC for the struggling people out there that's having a problem pay their rent?
really, I gotta wait for, I guess, like Mike said, what's coming down from DC, yeah?
Well, maybe with Joe Biden's in there as our new president, we'll probably get more.
Oh, yep. But if not, I just, for me, myself, I just want to reiterate what everybody said. It was a tremendous task that was put, to the staff, Denise and the staff, as well as the nonprofits and their staff. And I just want to say thank you for everything they did. I think it was an awesome job. Thanks.
Great job, Denise.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, everyone.
So if anything else from your report?
What's going to be coming up next is once we have the legislative packet together, governor approved the bills, then that would be the next thing up for focus. Throughout my report, there are certain projects that need help, but we're trying to work through regulatory issues to get these projects going. Water, like I said, infrastructure is key. We're trying to work through those infrastructure needs with the counties, but affordable housing and development, the stimulus that the construction offers is very critical, and that's where we need to redirect our attention.
All right, thanks. If there's nothing else, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Oh, motion.
Oh, that was fast, Mel. Thank you.
I gotta go to work.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Thanks, Gary. All in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
We are
Aye.
adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
George, behave now.